He wants a quick peace deal, which requires serious compromise both from the Zelensky government and from the Putin dictatorship. On the Zelensky side, Trump's talking about territorial compromise and a moratorium on Ukraine joining NATO for at least 20 years. On the Kremlin side, Trump's talking about a secure Ukraine in an endurable peace, which would be provided by, one, establishing a demilitarized zone between Russian and Ukrainian forces, to which European troops would be deployed, and two, arming Ukraine to the hilt.
Let's just continue on this theme. Another contentious topic for the Donald Trump administration is Ukraine. The Times is reporting that Britain will lead a defence group focused on supporting Ukraine's security for the first time, in a sign the US is taking a step back from its role in Europe. The Trump administration requested that John Healey, the UK Defence Secretary, convene the 26th meeting of the Ukraine Defence Contact Group in Brussels next week. That will no longer be led by his US counterpart. The US Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth will be there, though, as well as counterparts from as many as 50 different nations. John Herbst is a former US ambassador to Ukraine. John, good evening.
Good evening. Pleasure to be with you.
Why was Britain chosen to replace the United States as the country to lead this group?
Well, I think it's safe to say that among the major European powers, actually among the major powers within NATO, the British have been the strongest in support of Ukraine since Russia's big invasion. And I say that not proudly, because I think the Biden team had some seriously weak instincts, which got in the way of effective leadership. And the Trump team hasn't quite figured out in full parameters how it wants to handle dealing with Russian aggression in Ukraine.
Okay. Tell us a little more about what we know of this group and what the aim of it is.
Well, this group has been the international body coordinating military assistance to Ukraine. And given the fact that, the large arms supplier is the United States, and the United States has been the leader of NATO since NATO was founded, it made sense for the U.S. to be in the lead. So we have been in the lead. Although, again, as I said, while we remained the titular leader, we were a little bit too timid in our support for Ukraine in ways that the British government under different prime ministers have not. In the case of the Trump administration, as you know, they came in with a different concept than Biden's for dealing with Moscow's aggression in Ukraine. There is more than one policy view in Trump world about Russia's aggression in Ukraine, although I believe that the policy we're seeing emerge will be pushing for an end to the war in ways that ensure Ukraine's survival and security going forward. But how that plays out in specific details is unclear.
I was going to ask, John, what you thought that might look like. We know that Donald Trump doesn't want to continue spending US dollars on this particular war, yet at the same time wants to spend US dollars on, taking control of Gaza instead. So there's a little bit of muddling here in terms of his foreign policy, the Gaza line being a complete curveball for everyone. But what do we expect we might see? Has there been any change or any indication, fresh indication, now that Pete Hegseth, of course, the new US Defense Secretary, is officially in position?
Well, just on Gaza, I think the press spokeswoman at the White House said no American dollars, no U.S. government dollars would be involved. We'll see how that plays out. But I mean, they understand that that's a road they may not want to travel down. But as for Ukraine, I am cautiously optimistic that Trump's policy will achieve a sustainable peace in Ukraine. That their stated objective is a sustainable peace, not necessarily a just peace. And a just peace, of course, would involve Ukraine recovering all of the territory Moscow has occupied. That's not what Trump is trying to do. He wants a quick peace deal, which requires serious compromise both from the Zelensky government and from the Putin dictatorship. On the Zelensky side, Trump's talking about territorial compromise and a moratorium on Ukraine joining NATO for at least 20 years. On the Kremlin side, Trump's talking about a secure Ukraine in an endurable peace, which would be provided by one, establishing a demilitarized zone between Russian and Ukrainian forces, to which European troops would be deployed, and two, arming Ukraine to the hilt to deter future Russian aggression. Zelensky has smartly indicated a willingness to compromise. He said it's not nice, I mean, it's not pleasant, but territorial compromise may be required. Putin and the Russians have shown no willingness to compromise. And that's why Trump slammed Putin 2 weeks ago as the obstacle to peace, and why the Trump administration is talking about serious economic sanctions on Russia and perhaps transferring the $300 billion worth of frozen Russian state assets to Ukraine.
Yeah. Look, John, really good to speak to you. Thank you for putting that into context for us and just bringing us up to date on where your thoughts are at the moment. John Herbst is a former US ambassador to Ukraine.
We're going to stop that ridiculous war. Very talented guy. We have very talented people working for us. We're telling Ukraine they have very valuable rare earth. We want what we put up to go in terms of a guarantee. We want a guarantee. We're handing them money hand over fist. We're giving them equipment. European is not keeping up with us. They should equalize. And look, we have an ocean in between. They don't. It's more important for them than it is for us. But they're way below us in terms of money. And they should be paying at least equal. They should really be paying much more than us. But let's say equal to us. And they're billions and billions of dollars below. So we're looking to do a deal with Ukraine where they're going to secure what we're giving them with their rare earth and other things. But they're finding tremendous amounts of really bad things, bad spending.
To our nuclear deterrent. The UK is also a firm friend to Ukraine.
Against those children and their futures. And that's why together we stand with them.
And Prime Minister, would you be willing to water down your reset with the European Union?
Both of these relations are very important to us. We are not choosing between them, but that's historically been the position of the UK for many, many decades now.
And started planning for a future of defence that may not include the United States.
We face a more volatile world now than we have done for many decades. So now is the time to step up on all fronts with both the US and the EU. It is not the time to pull back on either front.
Yeah, but that means that you have European defence without the US being involved. That's what you're saying. That is a NATO or whatever the organization is then called without the US. For many reasons that will not work. First of all, because we are not, as the Prime Minister was saying, as Keir Starmer was saying, when you look at Ukraine, it is not just Ukraine and Russia, which would be bad enough. It is a geopolitical thing which is going on. The US realizes that, the European side of NATO realizes that, it is China, North Korea, Iran, all getting connected to Russia. So this is a geopolitical thing playing out at the moment with Ukraine. And therefore Ukraine must prevail, not only for Ukraine's sake, first of all, but also because of the geopolitical impact.
Right, that's all we have time for. Thank you.